Anyway, mate, how you been doing?
Oh, good, yeah. Oh, good. How are you?
Not too bad. It's 4 weeks out from the fight next month now.
Three.
How's training been going for it? Like,
Yeah, it's been flying, so it has been good. It's been a lot better than training for the last fight because I think there's 11 or 12 people matched the fight from my gym Paddy's weekend. So not on Cage Warriors on a smaller show locally.
I said Clan Wars in it next month.
Yeah. So they're fighting 2 days after me or a day or two after me. So it's good to have that amount of training, like constant training partners, you know.
Yeah. What's the lockdown rules like in Ireland at the minute? Is that like stopping you in any way from your training, or it's just been like normal?
No, because it's because so many of us are fighting and with the contracts that we're fighting under,
Yeah.
we're allowed to train. Technically, the gyms are shut, but there's a core group of us, maybe 12 to 15 of us,
Yeah.
between being the fighters and the coaches,
Yeah.
that are doing all our training together. So we're pretty sweet that way. Like we're not missing out on anything.
Decent. Did you make it like Kieran coming into the fight?
Yeah, Kieran's a good tough opponent. So he is good, solid. He's sort of your generic MMA fighter. Don't like he's good everywhere. So he is. He's got decent striking, a bit of power, and he's a good grappler. So I'm looking forward to fighting him.
You someone who watches a lot of tapes of your opponent before a fight?
No, I've started watching more because now I think with the level that we're fighting at, you're sort of missing out if you think instead of me taking time to figure out what his weaknesses are.
Yeah.
In the fight, just that's what I used to do. Like the first before I moved back to Cage Warriors, it was just like go in and wing it and see, find the openings and then like finish them in the second round. But then whenever boys are game planning for you and you're out with no game plan, it's a wee bit more risky. So now we've just started to. Don't get me wrong, I couldn't care what he's going to do, but we have noticed a couple of different tendencies in what he does do that we'll be looking to exploit.
Yeah. You have a background in karate, don't you?
Yeah. About 14-time Irish champion, European champion. Fought all around the world, won a lot of competitions in it. So yeah, that's where I started.
How have you incorporated sort of that into your MMA game? Because I mean, I know like now about karate, but I don't. You don't have like a traditional karate stance, do you, when you're fighting, or how have you sort of incorporated MMA?
It was good. It was only more like a lot of the stuff from karate, because it's a point scoring sort of sport. Whenever I started it, it was a lot more fun. So you got to fight with like the equivalent of 4-ounce gloves. They were cotton. You didn't have to wear shin guards, not to wear no protection. You were sweet. You just had these wee gloves. And then as they've been sort of getting it towards the Olympics, it got watered away down to like a game of tig, pretty much, where you weren't allowed to hit each other. The main thing I've taken from karate over has been like the footwork and the movement. So like that's where I'm fucking 24, 25 fights into my MMA career, and I haven't taken one clean punch because I'm used to like not someone can't even touch me because I would lose points in the karate competition. So taking that into MMA, it's slightly more risky. You might lose your jaw, not a point. Like, so it's good to have that sort of that style of not getting hit, sort of being a wee bit elusive, and then the rest is just a mix of everything. Like whenever I started MMA, I just was a bit of a rocket head, like that won the fight.
Yeah, I don't see you taking loads of damage in the fights. Like I said, I was watching the Aimable fight the other day, and do you find that sort of fight like more frustrating when it goes down to points like that?
Yeah, it's like the way I sort of look at it is I've never fought out of all the years of fighting. I've never fought anyone to beat them on someone's opinion. Like I've always, throughout my karate career, if you got a certain amount of points clear of people, the fight would be stopped. Like it's sort of deemed that they can't come back from that. And that's sort of my style of fighting. Whenever I get into trouble and get into fights, it was never split up and sort of like, oh, well, I think Decky won, or I think he won, or I think he won. It was always a clear, like, I always fight so that there's a clear winner. Someone's lying in a heap and someone's not. Like, that's the winner. So the fight against the Amable, that's when we had to start tweaking the game plans, because it's not that the better fighter didn't win that night. The better game plan won that night. Like, in my head, I thought that Steve was going to come out and we'd have a good sort of solid tear up with each other, and that I would have finished him. He had other plans and sort of exploited a couple of silly mistakes that I made, and he was able just to stall out the win.
Was that when you decided you need to sort of plan out your opponent a bit more and come up with a game plan going into it, or was it before then?
No, it was that fight there that we sort of had realized that it was the game plan had won the fight for him. So, like, I was just fighting to finish in that fight, like 100%, not a care in the world. Just if he takes me down, I'll submit him. If he stands in the fight, I'll knock him out. And I remember one of the last scrambles, thinking to myself, "Oh fuck, like this, the fight's over, and I haven't finished him." Do you know?
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like, whenever the fight was eventually stopped, I remember sort of near enough being in shock, showing that it didn't actually finish him. And then it was like, then it clicked, then it sort of registered with me that you've messed this one up, you haven't stopped them, and the fight's over, so now you've lost. Like, so then we sort of had to adapt a wee bit.
Yeah. Was so like about you as well, tell me if I'm wrong, but even though you've got like a background in striking, like you say, you will go for like the submission as well, if it like if it's there. Like the Adam Ventry fight, like you say, with the rear naked choke, is it?
Yeah, like, as I said, I'm also training in one of the best jiu-jitsu clubs in Ireland, under Sebastian Torres, he wasn't one of the first Irish black belts, but he was one of the first black belts in Ireland in jiu-jitsu. So we've got like a high level, like I'm a striker and I've always been known as a striker. I'm also a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I've competed in the European Championships in jiu-jitsu. I've won national competitions in jiu-jitsu. So I'm not only a striker, it's just I tend to prefer to strike with people.
To give you some confidence, and I think a couple of guys you fought with have been black belts, haven't they?
Yeah, the past.
Give you some confidence when they sort of. Sorry, go on.
I think Kieran's a black belt, and then Ventry was a black belt, and Yaz Buddhis, he was also a black belt, and both of them was managed to submit Ventry, and I grappled Yaz Buddhis. So it's a different story. A black belt's not a black belt whenever you get punched in the face.
Yeah, that must give you some confidence then, like.
Definitely.
You only fought one time last year. Do you have a plan for this year to be more active, or are you just taking?
I'm probably one of the most laid back people you'll meet. I have a goal of where I want to be, but everything's up in the air. Last year was my first solid plan of attack of what I was going to do and when I was going to do it, and sure, everything just went completely in the air with COVID. But now with Cage Warriors having set in stone certain shows, and now they know what's happening, I'll be a lot more active this year. Like, I should have fought in September. And Ventry's team, someone had tested positive, so that pulled them out of the trilogy in September. So that should have been September and December. And then I was offered to fight in Manchester. I think it was the show Paul Hughes fought on. I think it might have been Manchester. I was offered to fight on that show, but that was like literally 5 weeks after my first child was born. So it was like, I'm going to take a bit of time and spend it with the family. And then there was 3 shows. There was supposed to be 3 shows in Ireland like last year, which the time-wise, it suited me perfect. That I would have 3 fights by September and then hopefully go again one in December. But as I said, COVID that wasn't my doing. That put me out of that. There. That was the madness that's happening.
Yeah. I think everyone was a bit wild last year, like all up in the air.
Yeah.
I think they announced a lightweight title fight as well for the trilogy event in March. Will you be paying Sadari versus Lakhdar? Will you be paying attention to that?
100%. Like, I was actually thinking that could have been my next opponent, being the French lad. As I think that'd be a great opponent for me, to be honest with you. Honestly, I thought Joe McColgan would have been fighting for the lightweight title, and
he just fought previously, hadn't he? Is that correct?
He fought Kieran. So he did knock Kieran out in the first round.
Yeah.
On the last trilogy, and then before that, it was Mason that stopped Joe. But what I thought Joe would have been the next sort of title contender, as that fight happened on 3 or 4 days' notice. You know, that whenever Joe fought for the lightweight title, and then also Kieran's a more ranked opponent than the Scottish lad that got the Scottish fella that got beat by, but I can't call the French fella, the Ben Lakhdar or something, or
Lakhdar.
So the fella, his last opponent wasn't exactly a ranked opponent. You know, like he's only new to Cage Warriors.
Yeah, that was his Cage Warriors debut, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was his Cage Warriors debut. He was 6-1. He hadn't really beat any top opponents, like on his way to Cage Warriors. So I think that was sort of. I didn't think that the French fella would have been the next in line for a title off that.
Is that your plan, that you've planned in your route to the title as well, or?
100%. Yeah. I want that by the end of the year.
I've heard you've trained with Jay before. Is he a team member of yours, or is that just something that happened in the past?
Was Joe? Joe would be a good mate of mine. So he would. We have the same boxing coach. Well, one of my boxing coaches that I've trained with from Belfast, I started with through Joe. My coach used to teach jiu-jitsu down in Joe's gym, and we would have all been linked together through one team sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then our team has just grown that much that my coach couldn't commit the time to making the trip back and forward to Belfast. So it's just broken down, like from Sebastian sort of stopping going to Belfast to sort of, there's that link isn't there anymore. But he would have been like, Joe got his belts and everything under my coach, like in jiu-jitsu. So
appreciate you chatting to me, mate. I appreciate you coming on for Clan Wars next month. Who should we be watching out for, as well as obviously your Cage Warriors event?
There's a squad of us, as I said. There's 2 young lads that I think are going to make it, like going to go very, very far in the sport. It's Oisin Fox and Rory Lavery. You've also got my main training partner at the minute, Marcin Simbala. He's fighting pro in the show. And then Dara Tolman's another sort of up and coming pro. And then Oisin Duffy, he's only like 18 or 19, but he's a big lump. And he's very, 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 very talented. So between the 5 of them, not leaving the rest of the boys out, they're all killers, but between the 5 of them, they're the ones that are doing most of the work with me.
Yeah. I'll keep an eye out for it, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I keep an eye. There's a fella, Gregor. I can't even say his second name. He might be getting matched. He's a Moldovan wrestler.
Yeah.
So if he gets matched, someone's getting dunked on their head.
No, keep an eye out for it, mate. Cheers.
Definitely. All right.
I appreciate you coming on, mate.
All the best.
Cheers.
Happy.